Hey everybody, this is Michele.
And this is Julie.
Welcome to a Blonde, a Brunette, and a Mic podcast. What is our podcast all about, you ask?
Well, we're two 50-something women with life experience and plenty to say.
Which is exactly what we're going to do right now. Well, we're so lucky to have somebody who's been on some previous episodes with us. It's an occasional guest because she does not live here in the Seattle area. So she comes to visit and, you know, have a few days of shenanigans. Not that there's a lot of shenanigans that go on while she's here, right, MB?
Well, there was a good one last night, but okay, yeah.
So what'd y'all do last night? Hells bells!
Well, we went down to the Edmonds, Bite of Edmonds, the Taste of Edmonds, I should say. And they had amazing food. They had some really great food, and they had different bands playing. And the all-female cover band that does all ACDC songs was playing, and they were awesome. I love them.
We saw them a few months back.
Yeah, we saw them.
Did she flash her tattoo ass like she did last time?
Oh, honey, yes, she did. And took off her shirt and did the whole...
Yeah.
Okay, for all of you listening,
it's a show.
It's really not like a strip show. It's just more like she's channeling her inner
ACDC.
Yeah, her inner ACDC.
Yeah. She's kind of what makes the show.
She has dreads, long, blonde-ish, grayish dreads, and she flings them all over the place.
Yeah.
But she channels Axl.
Why do I say Axl Rose? That's not the right band.
Angus Young.
Thank you.
That's
Why? I can't believe... Yeah, Angus.
She's channeling Angus, and even at points before she flashed her full ACDC...
tattooed ass.
Yes, that. She goes back and takes a big swallow of water and just...
Shoots it.
for the sweat, the look of the sweat flying off of what used to be
It's a
Angus.
good show. They put on a good show.
Okay, you know what I think is so cool about them is that they are all our age.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all there's well, not all of them. I think they've got a couple of new ones, but the original ones, I actually looked them up after we saw them last time. They're like our age. One of them's a couple of them are grandmas. You know, yeah. I love their energy.
And if you were crowd watching at all, and that was a great place to watch the crowd. A lot of people our age and older, and everybody knew those songs, right?
Yep.
But it was just so fun. It was really fun, Julie, until this adorable younger gentleman tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Is that your girl?" To which I'm thinking, what was it? And shout out to Jason and Travis Kelsey. I was wearing my new Heights hat.
Baseball hat.
Which several men of all ages were like, right on.
I liked your hat.
Where'd you get your hat? Yeah, you had many people asking you.
I did. Wasn't my Stones shirt. It was my hat that got attention. And I'm thinking, so Julie's like half my height, right? And I'm standing right behind her filming a lot of stuff. And I was dressed very comfortably. And is that your girl?
You look like a couple.
I don't know how, because it's not like I was dancing up on her or anything.
She wasn't grinding on me.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So there was a little shenanigan.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say.
Sounds like it was a good time.
We did. We had a great time.
I had some pretty particular statements that I responded with.
Yeah. Oh, well, he took it in stride.
Yeah, I did. So did I. I didn't have a choice.
Yeah. Anyway, we went and did that while Michele was off dancing the night away with Carol and with Eileen.
Yeah, I didn't really do a lot of dancing, so it was more socializing. There's this place, though, that I hadn't been to, is a rooftop that is down at the Emerald Queen Casino. I learned last night that there's two. One is like not the one you want to go to. This is at the other one that there's a million, like where all the shows and they have stuff. So anyways, it was a good time.
The hotel.
Yeah,
the hotel side is the one that we had gone to that one time.
Yeah.
But the music was really good. And it's DJ. It's not live music.
Yeah.
You didn't get the same vibe.
I didn't. No, I wasn't really digging it. But it seems like it could be a fun spot, obviously, because it is up on the rooftop. And we got there right after the sun had set. But it was a nice view, and they got the whole rooftop vibe thing going on. But for me, if it's not the right music, it's just like that has a lot to do with the vibe for me. So
she was looking all sassy in her little pink jumpsuit.
It was just a different crowd.
Yeah.
So it's all good though. Not saying it's like that all the time.
No. Well,
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll just move on from our partying nights last night on a Friday because we make this rule, kind of like unsaid rule, that we don't go out twice on the weekend. And I've been doing that a lot lately.
Oh my gosh, I'm just going to tell you, it was such a treat for me because at home, hubby and I, we just don't do that stuff. And it was just so fun.
Yeah, it's fun to get out. And I've kind of said to myself, you know, it's like the weather's beautiful and you complain that it's, you know, rainy and cold and miserable and you don't like to go out and do stuff outside, you know, when it's like that. And it's like not like that. So get your ass outside and go do something fun.
Because otherwise you're home going, oh, I really should have gone out and enjoyed the day.
Yeah.
I really should have
Taken the dogs down to the dog park.
Should.
There's that word.
Oh,
Should.
we're not going to get started on that. Okay. So,
We are.
I'm going to digress.
Okay.
And we're going to get into that because
Okay.
should is definitely a part of this conversation. But I listened to your last podcast and I think I was texting both of you about your teaser because I just assumed it was all about women's reproductive rights.
Roe v.
which
Wade,
is
all that stuff. Yeah.
which is so loaded where I live, where all of that is illegal.
Right.
People can lose their licenses to practice medicine.
They can go to jail.
All of the GYNs are moving out of the state. We are talked about regularly on the news for the state with a total ban. So I was texting both of you going, oh no, you are not going there.
Loaded topic.
I was scared.
Yeah.
Why though?
Well, just because it's a topic that people have strong opinions on where I live. And it's one of those things that friendships end over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People have that strong of an opinion one way or the other. So it's one of those things that if you're working with the public, you just
Keep
sort
your
of
mouth shut.
walk around it, or you adopt that position of, you know, I don't talk about sex, I don't talk about religion, and I don't talk about politics. So there's that. And it's all of
So
those,
how's
right?
the weather?
Right, which kind of limits, right?
But I don't disagree with that because I feel like you could get a really visceral response from people, and it is a very taboo topic. Anything that's controversial is going to be a taboo topic, right? So this one happens to be.
It is. And see, I'm sitting here thinking of even another layer outside of that in regard to any topics that might be controversial. And why can we not just let people's ideas, beliefs, and opinions be people's ideas, beliefs, and opinions, and not try to change people's minds in social setting? And I guess that's another thing is in a social setting. It depends on where you're having these conversations, but live and let live. That's what makes the world a really great place because you can have all of these dynamics in cohabitating communities, but when everybody is trying to push and, you know, make you think that you have to and this, that, or the other.
And you should do this, and I can't believe you don't think that.
And I guess I lived that because of the whole vaccination thing.
Right.
I did not get vaccinated. And I mean...
It was a thing.
It was a thing.
Yeah.
It was definitely a thing. And I'm like, I wasn't trying to change people's minds. I would give, you know, reasons if I was asked, but it's interesting.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
And I had to listen closely, and you navigated that so beautifully in the last podcast, Michele, because you were just like, so what, 9 months? Where's the cutoff?
Yeah.
I mean, the conversation was really healthy and thought-provoking, I thought.
Yeah.
So with that, we're talking about this subject
Hell yeah.
For
today.
sure. Yes.
Because the topic was not taboo in our home. I had 3 girls.
Yeah.
You need to have the conversation with them very clearly about their part of the responsibility if they're going to engage in personal relationship that involves sex.
There's a thing too, though. So great that it was talked about in your home. It was not talked about in mine, and there were
Wasn't
5
mine
girls.
Not talked about in mine either.
Right?
I never had
I know.
the talk, whatever the talk is.
Yeah.
Never, no idea. And all I knew was, you don't want to get pregnant.
Well, I was like, you don't have sex because only cheap whores have sex, basically. You know?
It was that Catholic school upbringing for me. And also my older sisters were really my teachers. And that's what it was. There was this heavy judgment thing that came down, which included having a boyfriend in junior high or high school. I didn't have one until my junior year of high school.
For that reason, you mean? Or just because you weren't allowed to?
I grew up in a really small environment, the pickings were
slim pickings, man. Slim pickings.
I had a girlfriend that, we knew each other from kindergarten up. Man, she dated everybody, but nobody from home.
Really?
She dated from all the town and was encouraged to by her mom. And I think about what moms would say. She wasn't sleeping around or whatever, but she was sampling the goods.
She wasn't, quote, sampling the goods. She was just I was kind of boy crazy
going
and
to movies
went around and flirty and had tons of boyfriends and just that she laughs about it. I wasn't sleeping with them. I mean, I wasn't, but I'm sure everybody thought that I was. And, and a lot of that maybe has to do with the way you look. And it's like I looked older than I was when I was younger because I developed faster, blah, 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 blah. So you're treated differently, too. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole nother issue. But when it comes to I didn't even know what abortion was, let alone I was terrified of the idea of getting pregnant. So I wasn't having sex. So it was just kind of like,
well, does anybody that young really understand what sex is?
No. Well, we weren't really taught about it. So you learn about it from like your friends and the people that are around you.
I think it's different now.
Yeah. Well, now there's the internet.
Different now.
I was on the farm.
Yeah.
I learned about it on the farm. You can see it.
Yeah, right.
Everywhere.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Interesting.
Procreation from the pigs and the...
Yeah, literally. You could see it's like, what are they doing out there in the pasture?
Yeah.
And my mom would usher me away from the window.
Oh, really?
Right?
That's just like pump, pump. See ya.
Oh, it's not pump, pump.
Whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like every fuckboy out there, right?
This is interesting though, because based on the episode that we did, and it was more than a few topics, but with regard to this, you living in the state of Idaho, I mean, you're living a very different reality of how this impacts the things that go on. You were just touching on some of it for the doctors and all of that and what that looks like. What does it feel like there with regard to this? I'm sure there's things that people, I mean, I don't know.
It's right now is really interesting.
Because I think we take it for granted here because we have so many, there's like all the options and we hear about other places. Yeah. So,
but there's parameters just to kind of add a little note. There are parameters. It's not this free for all.
I know.
Okay.
But compared to
people think it's a free for all.
Yes. Yeah. And compared to where she lives, it probably does seem like that. And we probably get judged and Washingtonians there and what y'all.
In social environments, you hear the references to Freatle.
Mm-hmm. Freatle, yeah.
You hear the references to Seattle trying to become the new California. Mm-hmm. And these are all very loud conversations from people who are not native Idahoans. Mm. I was born and grew up there. Uh-huh. I left. I came back. And you got to remember, there's 1.5 million in the entire state. And it's primarily very rural. Mm-hmm. The areas that are populated are being overrun. And when I say overrun, we, much like Seattle, have a housing shortage because of all the people coming from very populated and more liberal states. Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of people from New York, Connecticut,
California.
Even some Maine. California is crazy. When I have had to travel to see my daughter in California, I'm always commuting with emergency EMTs that work down there, firemen that work down there, and live up at home. And
in Idaho.
Yes.
They live in Idaho. They're still
they're
working.
commuting.
Yeah.
They don't want to live. Probably can't afford to live in California.
Well, there's a couple things that you're finding about that. It's not that they can't live there.
They don't want to.
Their money goes a lot further. Their style of living, their safety in living. Mm-hmm. However, the salaries, the benefits, you can't find those same things in Idaho. So they're keeping their jobs in California. So they're really benefiting from both worlds.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
So literally, my husband and I are surrounded by somebody from Apple who's retired, somebody who came out of the housing market in Menlo Park area, which is Silicon Valley area, a lot of retired police officers, and they have very definite ideas about how things should be run. And from a native Idahoan standpoint, they're bringing, and don't misunderstand this statement because I am not entirely conservative, they're bringing far more liberal thoughts and politics to an extremely extremely conservative environment. So while they think they're conservative,
they're not compared to. That's kind of like what Andrew's experienced in Texas. It's like they think that they're really progressive people because they're coming from Seattle. I know. Little do we know that he's been completely brainwashed, now that didn't take long, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Oh, thank God for Amelia. Anyway, yeah. So there's just this assumption, I think, like you were even saying and this is not something that I would personally say, but I've heard people say it before. They were calling progressive people libtards.
I heard a couple of the people I was commuting with.
Yeah.
Talk about some of their coworkers in California as libtards.
This is what I'm talking about. Why do we have to? Why
be mean like that?
Why? Yeah. It's that you can really
why
think
can't
all
we
those
all
things.
Just get along.
I know. It's just this whole big part of me that wishes that, but everybody can have those feelings and thoughts and not agree with and do all those things, but we don't need to be.
Our environment is encouraging that,
know.
and I really think it goes back to. For me, because I've come out of the IT sector my entire life, I believe that when we started moving away from direct interaction...
human connection, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So computers, phones, all of that have introduced this distance where you would say things in a text, in an email,
absolutely,
that you would never say to somebody's face.
Absolutely.
True. And I say that about my kids.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, is it better? It might be faster. I don't know that it's necessarily better for a healthy society.
I believe it is not better for a healthy society.
I think Michele has a very strong opinion about that.
I believe that it is not better, and that everything about human connection and humanity is getting lost in the IT shuffle.
It is. And, to that point, we're talking about a controversial subject. You're also seeing that from a psychological standpoint. People are hardwired for human touch.
Right.
You don't do that through an email. You don't do that through a text. You don't do that.
Why do you think the pandemic was so tough for people? They were so isolated.
And we really haven't returned to that same environment. There's so many people really resisting, myself being one of them, because I am more efficient at home. I'm more accessible at home rather than having that hour commute that takes 2 hours out of my day in the car, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this subject has sex, it has politics, and it has religion, and it has all three factors that up until this point, we just were told not to talk about it publicly.
Right.
Here we are, we're having to, because we have government trying to infringe on what our choices are.
Well, if you dial back to Roe v. Wade, this was the same issue that was coming up back when Roe v. Wade went in. Yeah. So when that finally went into place, you heard or could see that a lot of things calmed down maybe a little bit more because there was more of an established plan. That doesn't mean people agreed. It just wasn't discussed as much because it became part of an option really available. Now, granted, we're talking federally, that is a federal thing, and each state, just like a lot of other things, has the ability to deviate from whatever that is, make it more stringent, make it less stringent, whatever. And so now we've got the states like Idaho or
Texas.
Texas is another one. Florida is another one. We're just these very conservative states. That seems to be like the pattern, right? Where now that the very conservatives, not supposed to be biased, but conservative Supreme Court has overturned Roe v. Wade. Now it's back on the table for these states to be able to make some of these adjustments. It's become a renewed focus, I guess you could say, in a way that it hadn't been for years and years and years. So the generations that are coming behind us are the ones that are going to be impacted by the decisions that are being made today, just like we were impacted by the decisions that were made in the 70s with Roe v. Wade.
And honestly, those decisions were all very near the same age.
Right.
They were made before we were even aware of what they were or, what. Mm-hmm. So we grew up just thinking that was part of your options.
Honestly, it's not even anything I really thought about.
It wasn't me either.
Yeah. I remember thinking, oh my God, can you imagine if I would have come home pregnant?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I would have picked myself up off, and my dad wasn't violent. But I'm just telling you, the family that I grew up in a very devout Catholic family, I would have been picking myself up off the wall across, and my dad would have never spoken to me. I remember rolling a brand new car, didn't even have 600 miles on it. He didn't speak to me or acknowledge me for over a month. Imagine if something like that would have happened.
Heck, I got my ears pierced in 8th grade, and my dad didn't talk to me for a couple of weeks. That tells you something.
I was obedient and waited till I was 18 to get my ears pierced.
Rule follower.
And then I skipped school the day of my birthday, went and pierced them, and got 2 on one side just to be a little bit rebellious.
So I know sex was not a discussion, obviously, in your household. We talked about that before. Was there discussion amongst your siblings? Like because you had sisters, right?
Yeah, no.
So did you learn anything?
How to put a tampon in.
That's what Mary taught me that.
Yeah.
I mean, not like physically. She explained it like anatomically.
Yeah.
And then sent me to the bathroom.
I had to figure it out myself.
Yeah.
And it was not a pleasant experience.
Yeah, it was, even with like coaching, it was not a pleasant experience. I mean, there's these things, guys, be glad you don't have to, you never had to do this stuff, because I couldn't get it out. She had to take it out for me.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, literally, I'm
hilarious.
like this. I thought all my insides were going to come out with it. I was just like, could not.
So obviously she had the tampon discussions.
Yeah, but as far as sex goes, like, no, we didn't. This was not.
Or abortion. None of that stuff.
None of
Yeah.
that.
So
No.
let's talk about that for a minute. Did any of you ever with your girlfriends talk about abortions?
No.
No.
I didn't even know what it was
Yeah.
until after I found out one of my really good friends.
But I wonder if
had
people
one.
really do know until they get into a situation. Yeah, where they're like, what are my options? I mean, if it's even something that they're entertaining or they're wanting to get, everything lined up in front of them so they can make a good decision, that's probably the only time that they would even know.
At 16, how do you gather information for a good decision?
Well,
You
we
gather
can't.
somebody that's going to enable your decision because you're so afraid. Do you really research it at 16?
I don't know. I'm thinking about me as a grown woman and what I think
Right.
I would do, but who knows? I mean,
Yeah,
we
you
didn't
just
have,
don't.
We didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of the resources
Unless
there.
you're unless you have been in that situation, have had to make that decision, you just don't know.
And you just made my point. Mm-hmm. Who in Idaho's legislature,
Right.
because none of them are GYN doctors,
Right.
nor did they allow GYNs to come in and speak to that committee. Mm-hmm. Who among
It's just
them?
crazy. That's just
Who
crazy.
among them knows the situations that a provider is recommending this? And we need to immediately get the idea of abortion as birth control out of the equation.
Right.
Most doctors, when you see them the second or the third time, they're figuring out that this girl has an issue and
Yeah.
usually aren't going to provide
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And I'm speaking from somebody that I know in family practice. That's her moral guideline. But to your point in the last podcast, when you said, what is it, 9 months?
9 months.
So what happens when you get your first ultrasound and there's already something identified? The doctor is not sure if this looks normal. And by month 6, the next ultrasound, they know your child is not going to live through birth.
How do they know, though? How do they know?
Look, this is what they do for a
This-
living.
I
It's
know.
not up to me to I'm looking for somebody to help me if I'm a pregnant person.
Of course, and they're
to
gonna
make-
they're gonna share all the statistics. They'll give all the information medically and all of that, so that those parents can make whatever decision they decide to make. And to go along with that, if I
Most would
choose-
get a second or a third opinion, by the way.
probably, and if I'm choosing to still go through that process and birth the baby, even though I know it only may be minutes that child will live, then I can only imagine that these are the things that you never know what decision you're going to make.
Right.
But there needs to be, and I'm sure that there is, the ability to not feel like I should be terminating this pregnancy because the child's not going to live. Or maybe I want to go through all that, hold them for even if it's just a minute.
And that is your decision to make, right?
Exactly. I know.
But for the other woman on the other side of that spectrum who does not want to carry this baby
Right.
to death, if you want to look
Yeah.
at it that way,
Yeah.
and they're shamed
Right.
into trying to find someplace some
I know. That's
place
what I'm saying. So this is
safely.
This is what happens in the state of Idaho. If I'm faced with that decision and I don't want to go through with the pregnancy and birth, even if it's just a minute or even at all, these are the things that can't be an option to terminate prior. Is that right?
That is correct. In addition to that, anybody who aids in taking you to that place can be arrested, and the doctor can be arrested and lose their license to practice.
Yeah.
Why would I stay there?
Is it more because it doesn't have anything to do with the...
It's about control for the Idaho legislature making those laws. And it's about control and shutting it down to that point out of pure ignorance of the situations that women and families, because this doesn't just affect a woman, it's also her partner, her husband, her family. A lot of women in middle age, we're having our babies later.
Mm-hmm.
So you see some of these genetic things popping up more.
Let's just go with what Michelle's talking about. So you're hypothetically in Idaho, you're having this child that is is going to have a lot of issues if they live. They're severely deformed. They have spina bifida. They've got their, organs on the whatever, it's severe. That child, who's going to take care of that child?
Well, a healthy family would take care of that child, but they'd have to bring in assistance, right?
Right. Well,
professional assistance.
And then what about medical care? What about you have to think about all of the things that are happening after that. And you've got children. Nobody's talking about that. That's what just doesn't make any sense to me. There's these places, everybody's, like you said, entitled to their own opinion. Some states are going to have one thing, other states are going to have another, but nobody's talking about what happens to these little children that are born to parents that are not able to care for them, or are drug addicts, or are 14 years old and were raped, or it's an incest situation, or God only knows what. And they're having to go through an entire pregnancy. They're not even old enough to have a baby. They're not old enough to drive.
That's what blows my mind. So like in the state of Idaho, if my 11-year-old daughter is raped incestually and gets pregnant, she has to carry legally. I'm just saying there are no options other than to carry full term and have that baby. That's crazy. She's nodding yes for those of you that can't hear the adamant nodding. She's nodding yes. So there's no option for me except can I drive over the border to the state of Washington and see if there are options for my daughter?
You can, but you risk somebody reporting you and being arrested as her mother.
I would still do it.
And so herein is
for my child. I would make those risks for my child if that's what it ended up being. But make no mistake about it, your child is already, I wouldn't say damaged isn't the word, they're already severely traumatized. Yeah. If they're that age, or any age for that matter, and they're having to not only go through getting raped because they don't have consent at those young ages, even 14, 15, there's no consent really. They think they do, but they probably don't. They obviously don't know about condoms or even pay attention to what might be happening after the fact. They're going to be traumatized anyway. And now you're going to traumatize them even more by forcing them to have a child that they can't even take care of. And then our generation, if that child ends up staying with the family, is the one that's raising that child. So you've got, women in their 60s or grandparents raising children because the parents that are too young, not capable, need to finish school, whatever the case may be, ends up not being in a situation where they maybe can take care of that child. And then the child is the one that's left to suffer. The child is the one that's left to not have the, quote, normal upbringing that everybody seems to think is the ideal way to do things, with a mom and a dad and 2.5 kids and a dog. It's not realistic for everybody to think that those realities are going to come true.
And the fact of the matter is, that's what we all dream of for our families, right? Is exactly that. The mom, the dad, or the moms, the dad, the 2.5 kids, the ability to choose school, all the things that a healthy birth and raising a child brings you. Mm-hmm. But not all families have that luxury or start out that way.
Right.
And in a small environment, everybody would know who that child is. And don't think for one second that child
Would not be
growing up
ostracized.
would not be ostracized and the horrible things to live through.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the states that do have this as illegal and all of that are very, how do I say? Well, obviously conservative states, and a lot of the people are living in their bubbles, and they they have the home with the white picket fence, and we go to church every Sunday, and everything's great. The world is great. Everything is
They're the first people to judge
this is
these
what
other people.
This is where I'm headed with this. Is
self-righteous.
Yeah, and that's what's happening. You know, we just today drove a mile down from where we live to see all the homelessness, the tweakers, the prostitutes, just like all of
Just to show MB.
just well, I mean, yeah, and
Because it's like, she's like, really?
and these
So when
people are having babies.
Yeah.
They are getting pregnant. They are having, and this is part of
They're having sex for money to pay to feed their drug habit.
And this happens, and it's just all really unfortunate. And the world is not like it is in the homes with the white picket fence. It is not like that everywhere, and people need choices to be able to get through.
And the other
really hard situations.
factor in that I would also add is predominantly white. So let's
Yes.
talk about white privilege making the decisions for
100%.
what is wrong.
I'm more having an issue with men. They really don't understand necessarily what's going on with women. You know, what's going on with our bodies, what's going on with the fact that we don't really have a choice. It's not like we can opt to not be able to carry a baby or not, for the most part, right? If I really wonder sometimes if the situation was reversed and men were the ones that were responsible for birthing children, whether we would be having these same conversations. And I'm not trying to sound like a feminist at all, even though that really did sound like a feminist. I'm not. It's just more kind of like, I feel that the people making a lot of these decisions are doing it in such a self-righteous fashion, and they really have no understanding of the kind of power they're trying to impose on people.
Let me give you an example of one of the legislators that she got voted out, by the way. But this is a woman of a certain religion, very powerful in her community.
Mormon?
With 10 birth children, who was organizing legislation on the description of what sex, meaning gender, means for the state of Idaho. She was so prevalent and aligning with these men, and also white, living again in her bubble. And there's a community in that bubble. I understand that. But what happens when you have the kind of power to deliver something to your constituents, to your community, that allows for choice maybe outside of your comfort zone and the choices you would have made? Because I'll say, I could not have an abortion for me.
Mm-hmm. But you're not going to choose what everybody else is going to have.
Nor would I choose what is even for my daughters. If they asked me, I would give them my opinion, but their souls, their persons have to live with this. And I don't know a single person who's had an abortion who doesn't have the wonder of what if. That's for them. It's not for me to judge. But my point is, had I been in this woman's shoes, I sure as heck would have had experts in this field coming and giving me information to help maybe educate some of my coworkers before we made legislation on the topic that has far more reaching effects on not just a family who's in the middle of making a decision, but also the practitioners, also the people, friends who may be helping this person make a decision and aiding them. I didn't want to use the word enabling because that has a negative connotation, and that's not what I meant.
I know.
If somebody needed the help, would I drive them? I would.
Yeah, right.
I would risk my, I would, because that person is they're important to me.
Right.
I think with politics, it goes back to
Power.
Well, a lot of it's power, but it's also you don't ask questions that you don't want an answer to. And so she obviously is not asking the questions or posing questions that she doesn't want the answer to. That's what happens with a lot of this stuff. It's like, you see like with PETA, the animal rights, and you see with abortion rights activists, these graphic pictures of
Shock value.
Yeah. Pictures that you see. I've seen those with PETA before. I've seen those with abortion before. And it's like, and it's supposed to shock you into saying, wow, this is a person, you're killing a baby, you're blah, 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 blah. And I think there's definitely not the gross aspects of that, but there's a time and a place. I don't believe, I'm very pro-choice, but I know what I would choose for myself if I was in that situation. I think it would maybe depend on a few things. I don't know. If I was 14 years old and raped, I might look at it differently. I don't know. But as it stands right now, I mean, I have a daughter. I'm going to have a daughter-in-law. I'm going to be in a position where I'm going to be supporting women who are in that age group to be making some of these choices. And I'm going to do exactly what you just said. It's like, talk about the pros and cons, not necessarily trying to impose my beliefs on them. With my daughter, I've raised her in a way to where she should be a free thinker. She should be able to do what's right for herself, and she should feel like she's got the support, but she is not necessarily the norm. Not every girl her age has someone in their life that can be that person to have a candid, objective conversation
Honestly,
with.
I think even when you have people that are like that in your life, you still don't know what you will do in that situation.
Right, I agree.
You don't know because you face judgment, even from people that you think will not judge you.
Yes.
There are all of those factors, and that's why, I mean, when it comes to abortion, if that's what we're talking about in a more intimate fashion, I don't think that I can stand here and say, I don't think that I would choose. You just don't know. You don't know what you would choose if you were faced with that situation ever, or who you could confide in, or if there's anybody that you could confide in, even if you think that there is.
And that's why you've got little babies, like you were just telling me, found in the bushes down in,
Yes, down south. There was this is such a bigger thing, and everybody should be able to.
I was just going to go there.
Make these decisions with the ability to, have education wrapped around it, have places to go to hear both sides. And I think the reason that those kinds of places are important is because even when you have supported families, you don't know that your dad would have you might think that and maybe he would have, but this is the thing. It's like you just don't know.
And that's the reason why places like Planned Parenthood are very important.
That's why these types of places are so important for people to be able to go to, regardless of what choice, when they're on the fence for whatever the reason. Everybody should be able to make those choices.
Well, and then
you're right. You're right.
The morning after pill, that's even coming off the market. And I'm like, I don't think that should be my personal feeling is that should not be used for birth control. And I think it is used for birth control with people that have, spur of the moment, sex or whatever.
However, that is a great tool to not have to be faced with this decision of having to abort something that's already growing, regardless of your position on when life starts, when that fetus is viable as, to live outside the womb. Regardless, there's a reason why it was created.
Yeah.
But that's being discussed as going away.
Yeah, it is. And I started, you said the word should.
Yeah.
I hate that word.
Yeah.
And I have said this forever. And I just saw it in Brene Brown. If you're listening to this, I want you to know I'm reading your book, Atlas of the Heart. And you and I are kindred spirits in the word should. The word should, it holds so much shame. That's the other word I hate. The way we use it, it holds judgment. It holds a negative connotation on things you could have done differently. Well, maybe I didn't do it right the first time. Should. Strike it from your vocabulary. Yeah. It is absolutely a worthless word unless you want somebody to hold pain.
I agree. It's funny because you catch yourself using it a lot.
All the time, yeah.
And it's like, oh, I should go to the gym. Oh, I should go to the store.
But listen to what it is.
Yeah.
I should.
Yeah.
And it's about shame and it's a negative...
letting yourself down,
Making you feel shitty.
Shitty.
Shame, shitty.
There you are.
There she goes. She's always got something creative she's coming up with.
That's why she's your marketing expert, girl. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, should.
Yeah.
She should be.
Run away from that.
So, back
to
Jules. And back to this topic. when you hear somebody in all their ignorance say she should know how to prevent a pregnancy.
Or even she should know better.
Thank you.
She should know
Well,
better.
it's like, and she should know how to prevent. We're just like, what about the dude?
Yeah.
Men,
Have you ever heard of a condom?
from the get-go, men have never been held responsible
I know.
for this.
I mean,
In
even
fact,
male birth control they don't want to take because it might affect them. I'm just like, yeah, we know. We put on weight with the pill. We have to have the creams and the sponges and the things put in our arms. And then, oh, for God for sake, you don't use a condom. I'm going to get an STD. I mean, it's just like, it's never ending. You just need to be celibate. I should.
Well, isn't that what they taught us in Catholic school?
Yeah.
Celibacy, man. And you hold out for the first one. Well, there's a divorce.
Yeah.
You should have waited.
That's a topic we probably should discuss later.
Oh my God, you guys
We
are...
should really wrap this up.
I know.
Right about
This is-
now.
This is the whole reason why I come here.
We're trying to get her to move here,
The
everybody.
No, I left here
I
for a
know.
reason a long time ago. But I just think that I need to be back monthly.
Yeah, works for me.
That works for me.
We solve so many of the world's problems on this couch.
Or we should.
Or we create more world problems every time we have another Tito's and soda.
Yeah, that's what's happening.
Okay, so I'm shouting out again. One more thing. I'm shouting out Jason, Travis, Brunette. You guys need to listen and weigh in on this podcast. Just saying.
Yeah.
I'm sporting and supporting everything that you guys do.
Sporting and supporting.
I was.
Hey, I like that.
Sporting that
and
hat,
supporting.
man. That hat was, telling you, it was hot.
I love their podcast. I've only watched snippets of it.
That's
But they're
hilarious.
pretty funny brothers.
Oh, they're hysterical. Oh my God, I just love Jason. Well, you too, Trav. Just saying.
Trav's not a fuckboy anymore. Yay!
Yeah, did I hear they just got engaged?
Yes.
Oh, they're engaged now.
I'm shocked by that.
I mean,
somewhere I
he
read
knows
that
a
they were...
catch, hopefully, when he
I
sees
know,
it, right?
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
darling.
He sure did move
Darling.
swiftly on that one.
Oh,
Snap. All right, on that note,
Yeah.
Michele. Hey, Michele, our social media expert. Will
Oh,
you tell us
please.
where we're at?
We're on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and you can find us out there on YouTube. Look us up, Blonde Brunette and a Mic.
Woohoo! We've been working on YouTube.
yeah. Julie and I were
MB,
working on figuring
they're-
out the YouTube
They're the
thing.
techie people doing all that shit, not me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but you can find us out there. So just check it out. It's a work in progress, but it's coming along. So when you do listen to our episodes, please download.
Please download. And you know what? The other thing, I know this was a tough conversation for a lot of people to have. It's really not difficult to love your people who have opinions that are different than you. And if you're just listening to your own echo chamber, are you really learning anything? Are you gaining any knowledge that maybe has an impact on how you think about things, how you would say things, especially if they're people that you care about? I just think that it's really important to have these tough conversations.
Agreed.
Thanks, MB.
And it's just easier as we are more mature women, too. Because when I was younger, I was never to say. Now
Appreciate that kind of thought.
yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. And on that note, everybody,
Peace.
until next time. Yeah.
I love you. I love you, girl.
Love you, too.
Later.
Bye, everybody. See you next week.